Neil from Essex here to walk you around some of the interesting quirks on a highway mowing tractor. Essex has a long history selling highway mowers. Much of the Pennsylvania Turnpike and highways around here are maintained with tractors that came out of our dealership, and another fleet of them here is headed out. We're going to walk around this machine here and show you some of the interesting quirks that are on it. You might be surprised that not every tractor makes a good highway mowing tractor, but there's a lot of unique features on the machine and some cool features on this highway mower that make this a really cool purpose-built machine.
Essex, a helping hand with your land.
You're going to see a lot of different equipment maintaining roadsides. I've been in some states before where I've seen batwing mowers out along roadsides, but here in Pennsylvania, that's actually fairly unusual, and most of the time, our areas are maintained with flail mowers. There's a lot of benefits to using a flail over a rotary cutter, one of those really being thrown objects. When you have a rotary cutter with horizontally spinning blades, if you strike things, it's a lot more apt to throw something out into traffic versus a flail mower with drums running this direction, which tends to discharge things straight out to the rear. So working around cars along highways, there's a real safety aspect to running this kind of mower. They also will digest things really well. If you bring up debris, trash along the road, that kind of stuff, flails will shred that stuff up and throw it out the back really easily. And you're relying upon those shredding knives on the inside of a flail in order to do that. Now, surprisingly enough, as good as these things can be at shredding up trash, they also do a really nice cut quality at the end of the day. We're seeing more and more people moving towards flail mowers all the time. Even over in our compact tractors, it's become almost unusual for us anymore to sell many rotary cutters. Flail mowers have taken over a vast majority of that business for their attributes in this way, right trash and cut quality. This particular machine is set up with two different flails. So you have one on the back of the tractor. This is an 88-inch mower on the rear and a 74-inch mower on this side that's an offset flail. So that allows you to mow both behind and off to the side of the tractor and get a really wide cut. Now, in order to have this offset here, there's some unique things here in the hydraulics that we'll talk about. This works a little differently than most typical tractors do. And you'll also have a large counterweight on the left-hand side of the machine. That counterweight's there to balance the weight of this mower hanging off the side. The biggest thing that makes highway mowers unique is the need for a front hydraulic pack. On the back of the machine, you're going to have a very traditional flail mower on the rear, but powering this offset mower is tricky, and most tractors actually can't do it. This front hydraulic pack here runs the side-mounted flail, and in order to drive this pack, you have to be able to get a shaft from the engine flywheel out to the pump system that's out here in the front. With the way a lot of modern tractors are constructed now, you often have batteries and radiators and other components in the way that don't allow this shaft to get out the front. So there's actually very few utility tractors anymore that we can mount this kind of power plant onto. This New Holland Workmaster 75, though, is one of them that we've been looking to here most frequently. Now, this power plant here in the front, there's some variations in how different companies do this, but there's a lot of smarts here in the front that I think you can probably notice some value in. A lot of times, simple hydraulic systems are done with gear pumps, right? A pump that is continuously pumping all the time. This one, though, is a little bit different. This has a piston pump in it that's driven by a swash plate. Now, what that allows is for this pump to basically have a neutral position. If you're only mowing with your rear flail and not your side flail, the shafts and all the gearing in these pumps are still turning, but the piston pump will stop pumping fluid so that it's not drawing all that horsepower off the engine in the same way that a gear pump would. So the piston pump here is going to be a little bit more efficient. It's not going to generate all that excess heat, and it's a better overall setup for this kind of application. It is a little bit more costly than what might be necessary, right? A gear pump would do this for less money, but in a tractor setup like this that's going to run these pumps for thousands and thousands and thousands of hours, these are some of the machines that we see the most operational hours on, well worth the money to get a piston pump out here on the front. So this pump system here is driven by this reservoir over here on the side. It's going to deliver that hydraulic pressure out to the side-mounted flail in order to spin that flail, and it also has a small gear pump on the front in order to operate the hydraulics in order to lift and tilt. I thought it was interesting that they choose to put the hydraulics for lift and tilt off of this pump system, operated by a separate lever up here in the cab, as opposed to using the tractor rear remotes. A machine like this comes through with 2 standard rear remotes and very easily could operate the 2 hydraulic functions on the side mower. There potentially could be some significant cost savings there, but the one benefit in isolating these systems is that there's no finger pointing between the mower manufacturer and the tractor company as to whose hydraulic system might be causing a potential mechanical problem, right? So by isolating these systems, by keeping everything for the mower related within this hydraulic pack and the mower controls itself, you end up with an optimized and engineered system with no crossover in the hydraulics between the tractor and the power plant. On the back of the tractor here is this really substantial 88-inch flail mower. Now, you look at this thing and you can see this is industrial duty stuff, right? The size of the drum, the number of knives, the size of the rear roller at the back, it's all made for thousands and thousands of hours of use. One thing it is unique though that we don't often see on tractors and see on a lot of implements is the way the side link on the PTO here is done. They actually remove the tractor's side link and in this case replace it with chains. And that's to allow the mower to very easily have a wide range of motion if it needs to rock left to right. Some 3-point hitches are fairly rigid. Some, like this one, do have some mechanical adjustments on that allow some of that flex. But when you're driving up and down a roadside, it could be presented with some really sharp angles. Removing that side link and dropping these chains in here are going to give a much wider range of motion than what your tractor typically would have. So when you want to operate this mower here, you lift it out of a rack here that's in a transport position. There's actually 2 hydraulic functions here. One that lifts the mower up out of the transport rack, and then the other hydraulic function here to take it over the side for mowing. Up here on the loader stick, I have a little switch to be able to turn the hydraulics on and off. There's a position sensor here that only allows this mower to run when it's in the lowered position or at a reasonable angle. You can't run the mower with it up here at 90 degrees. Now once you've set this off here to the side and you're ready to mow, you can lower it down to the ground and then push the stick the whole way forward to put it into a float position that's going to allow the mower to contour with the ground as you drive. Being that it's hydraulically driven, you don't have shafts that chatter or any of that kind of stuff when you're transferring that power out the side of the machine. So it's a pretty slick, simple little system in order to operate. So very cool. Pull the knob in and out to turn it on and off. Up and down to raise it in and out of the transport rack, left and right to change your angle. And again, this transport rack is pretty cool because when you're going to go and say transport from place to place, you fold this thing up the whole way and then lower it down. And then there's a little hook up here that it's going to catch to make sure that as you're driving back and forth, the hydraulics don't leak down. So that's a little bit on this highway flail mowing tractor. You might be surprised how different this whole setup is. In no way can you go out and just grab a 75 horsepower utility tractor, slap a mower on the side, and have it be correct, right? It takes things like engineering by companies who specialize in this kind of industrial equipment, tractors that are put together in a way that allow these unique hydraulic systems to come together, and a company and a dealership that knows how to work with this kind of customer. Selling equipment to highway mowing contractors that are working on a contract or working with state and government agencies is a lot different than selling a tractor to a regular consumer or farmer who might come in because of all the really unique purchasing requirements. So you'd be really surprised. We have a staff here that specializes in this equipment and understands the ins and outs of getting these things out. So hope you find that a little interesting. I always think it's cool to see this really purpose-built stuff that can be really efficient, right? And it's different than just taking stuff off the shelf and slapping it together. So if you're shopping for a piece of equipment like this, or if you have parts or service needs for a machine you've already got, give us a call at Messick's. We're available at 800-222-3373 or online at Messick's.com.